Hello and welcome to Power to the People with me, Graeme Pryce. This one has been a little bit more difficult to write than some of my other 5 reasons videos. I don't mean because the more I learned about Isabelle Oakeshott, the less of a twat you seem to be, which surprisingly has happened once or twice. And it certainly wasn't because I struggled to find 5 reasons either. In fact, that part was particularly easy. No, it was just because, while I fully intend to keep exposing the sheer hypocrisy and appalling stupidity of the most right-wing and obnoxious people in our society, there are some that are too obnoxious even for me. A recent study found that most people think one of the biggest crises facing the UK at the moment is health crisis, mental health crisis in particular, especially depression. Well, knowing this repugnantly repellent, insufferable individual is listened to by thousands of eager idiots who believe every bit of defamatory, deceitful bullshit she says certainly depresses me, so I try not to pay too much attention to her. Try to pretend she doesn't exist if I can. A bit like that cream-coloured cushion that you've spilt red wine on, but you don't want to throw it away, so you just turn it round, try to pretend the stain's not there, just so it's out of sight. Well, today we're going to turn the cushion round and expose the stain. Let me tell you 5 reasons why I think Isabelle Oakeshott is one of the worst twats in our current media society. Right after this. I was just looking at my channel analytics and I noticed that 53% of people who watch my videos weren't subscribed. The pain. Come on, just have a quick check that you've subbed, liked and rang the bell. Make a skinny old scouser a little bit happier today. It will come as no surprise to many of you that Isabelle went to a private school. Now, I'm not saying that every person who is privately educated is damaged in such a way that they seem completely incapable of any kind of normal human empathy. And I'm certainly not saying that your parents deciding that they'd rather send you to be raised by authoritarian and often religious zealots rather than raise you themselves at home leads to them being unpleasantly adjusted adults. But it does seem quite common, doesn't it? Isabelle attended Gordonston Private School in Scotland, a prestigious environment that has in the past been attended by such luminaries as the late Prince Philip and King Charles III. If I'd been educated in the same school as the actual king, there would probably be a few things I'd be a little bit more careful about saying, and some issues I should probably feel that I would, refrain from commenting on. Isabelle doesn't share that sentiment though, no, and as such, she has taken tips from the likes of Nigel Farage, Donald Trump and Boris fucking Johnson and attempted to portray herself as some sort of champion of working class people. You'll see more evidence of this as we go on. Here's one of her recent examples though. Shortly after the Farage riots this year, Isabelle decided to visit Hare Hills in Leeds, where one of them took place. She proceeded to find a dirty enough looking back alley and then wandered down it filming with a probably very expensive phone and wandering past people that actually lived there while commentating how it was filthy and disgusting. She paused to take a picture of some poo on the floor and then she said that the children were barefoot and neglected and the houses were practically derelict. She said this was a disgrace after 14 years of Conservative government. Well, you'd think I would agree with that, and in some sense I do. But this is coming from a woman who has taken the most extreme and Tory right-wing positions on every panel she's been on, every article she's written, every article she's commented on, and who has condoned every scandal, mistake and bit of deceitful corruption from all 5 pathetic attempts at prime ministers that the Tories gave to us. The hypocrisy is staggering. You went to the same school as the king, love. Sit the fuck down and shut up. Despite her sudden willingness to criticise the Conservative Party, you'll find in almost every case where she's allowed to present her vile and ignorant views, she espouses the same type of policies and ideology as the very worst of the Tories. Like them, Isabelle really does have a problem with disabled people. She thinks there's barely any level of disability that should disqualify you from having to do some sort of work. This creature who has literally never had a debit card refused in a shop in her life, never once had to worry about whether she can afford to put the heating on, and probably doesn't even know that prepayment meters for gas and electricity exist, has stopped short of saying we should use paraplegics as doorstops and quadriplegics as sleeping policemen, but give her time. What she has said is that disabled people should only receive benefits for 18 months and then they should get nothing. Not sure how she's working people that were born with disabilities into that, but maybe that's a discussion for another day. If they haven't found work themselves within those 18 months, they should have benefits withdrawn. They should take any job, any demeaning, soul-destroying minimum wage job they can find, or be left with nothing. Let's just build a little analogy here to make a point. Imagine Dave, the bin man from Leeds. He's worked on the bins for 21 years, but unfortunately he's had a stroke and he's only 41. He's been left paralysed all down his right side and wheelchair bound. For 18 months, Dave's received nowhere near enough support, really. Not enough to live on anyway. And his wife's working all the hours God sends to make up for it. Kids never see her. He's been put through a humiliating work capability assessment, and he was still only awarded mid-level benefits because he showed the assessor, who had no medical qualifications whatsoever, by the way, that he could still lift a pint of milk with his left hand and he could just about manage to make himself a cup of tea in the morning. So the decision maker has decided that he's a bit disabled, but he should start looking for part-time work again. Well, nobody wants to give Dave a job. Despite his physical condition, he's beginning to suffer some mental health problems from the sheer stress of it all as well. He's also finding that many employers simply don't have the capacity to offer work to a wheelchair-bound employee, and they certainly don't have adequate toilet facilities. So, after a while, 18 months has passed, and Dave wheels himself down to the job centre to see his work coach. His work coach informs him that his time is up, and his benefits will be stopped. He's had his last payment, he won't get another. She says there isn't any financial support available any further, and when Dave gets a little bit angry and asks how on earth he's supposed to pay his rent and feed his children and keep the lights on, she shrugs and offers him a food bank voucher and the telephone number for the local Salvation Army. Dave starts to have a little cry in sheer frustration. So the work coach calls security and has him escorted out of the building. On the way out, the security guard tells him it's his own fault and he should have looked harder for a job and not be such a scrounger. That's the Britain that Isabelle Oakeshott thinks disabled people should experience. I find it absolutely abhorrent that people that think in those kind of terms even exist. Dave might be fictional, but he's worth 10 of Isabelle Oakeshott, isn't he? Withdraw benefits from disabled people. Can now. Okay, well, that one has left such a bitter sense of right-wing bullshit hanging in the air that I think we need to just lighten the mood a little bit here. Well, as much as that's possible when you're talking about an evil populist hag like Oakeshott anyway. Isabelle End was married to Nigel Rosser, who had 3 children with her. Now, I can only begin to imagine the kind of overprivileged and entitled little shitbags that they must have been. But she's since ended that relationship and began a new romantic dalliance with none other than Richard Tice. Yeah, started in 2018. It's hard to choose my words on this one, really, and that isn't something that I can say very often. It looks like my eloquence has failed me here because I honestly can't think of any way to describe how much I absolutely would not ever want to wake up in the morning and see the face of Richard fucking Tice lying on the next pillow. Imagine having to spend every one of your days off hanging around the house with Dick Lice. I suppose if we're going to go purely on looks, then he doesn't look as much like a pillowcase full of sick and straw as Boris fucking Johnson. It doesn't look like his neck wants to swallow his head just to make it shut the fuck up for once like Nigel Farage. And it doesn't look like he goes home and relaxes in an SS uniform that he bought off the dark web like Lee Anderson. But still, Richard Tice, one of the most arrogant, dishonest, populist, gaslighting harridans in the whole world of media, and one of the most smarmy, ignorant, entitled and probably racist of all 5 reform wankers, just happen to find each other and fall in love. What's the odds? We really are living in the most interesting of times, aren't we? Even Nadine fucking Dorries couldn't make that one up. Of course, we probably know where she met Dick Lice because she's a mad Brexit nutter. Of course she is. But she's rich and entitled, so her impression on the whole Brexit event amounted to more than just voting yes in the referendum. She was able to get really involved. So much so that she had somebody ghostwrite a book called The Bad Boys of Brexit, an inside account of the Leave EU campaign, and pretended that she wrote it. Apparently, she had information about Russian interference in the referendum as well, but she just brushed that aside. And, she's wealthy and famous, so she doesn't really have to worry very much about laws. They don't really apply to her. She was also involved in writing Call Me Dave, the book in which David Cameron's intimate relations with dead pigs' heads was revealed, although she's since tried to step back from those allegations and claims her source may have been a bit deranged. Well, from what I can tell, almost all right-wing rich people in Britain are a bit deranged, so it could mean anything, couldn't it? She co-wrote a somewhat inconsequential book about the British Armed Forces, which is so rubbish it hasn't even got its own Wikipedia page, and has written a few other crappy things in support of crappy campaigns. But the one where she probably stands out was when she agreed to help Matt Hancock write a book about his work during the pandemic. And then she leaked all his WhatsApp messages, despite signing legal documents agreeing not to do so beforehand. Now, I don't have any regard for Matt Hancock, or Twat Wanksock, as I used to call him, but it certainly displays one aspect of a character and a level of trustworthiness, doesn't it? She claimed she did it in the public interest, but this is utter bollocks. She did it because she was one of those mad obsessed weirdos during the pandemic that was suspicious of everything and used their platform to continually sow disinformation and misinformation, especially about lockdowns. And she saw an opportunity to boost her profile with right-wing knobheads, so she dived right in and took it. I'm sure all her social media sites were swimming in new anti-lockdowners, anti-vaxxers and anti-reality people, all talking about how it was all a hoax and vociferously agreeing that lockdown was unnecessary within hours. Bet she made a fortune in ad revenue in a few days. I mean, making money is obviously the most important thing of all, isn't it? Who cares if people are stupid enough to believe the lies that she puts out? Those people are probably on benefits anyway. They might even live in Leeds, so fuck them. Speaking of the pandemic, that was quite an amazing thing to live through, wasn't it? I didn't have me YouTube channel to find lovely people like yourselves to cast me views out to then, and I was considered high risk, so I spent a lot of that time alone. Alone with Facebook and YouTube, and Boris fucking Johnson appearing on the television with a new 3-word slogan every few days. Where he could be arsed putting down the champagne and Charlie to turn up, that is. I fell into the trap of spending a few hours every day doom scrolling on Facebook and encountering all the most stupid and ignorant people who'd decided that they were going to believe utterly ridiculous conspiracy theories and lunatic fringe nonsense rather than the actual people who knew what they were talking about. You know the sort. People who decided that the whole thing was a plot by Bill Gates to inject us with nanoprobes because Uncle Frank, the reform voter on Facebook, said so. Or who believed 5G phone masts were causing the virus because they follow Lawrence Fox on Twitter. It would be unfair to suggest Isabelle was one of those idiots. No. Instead, she was one of the people spreading dissent and misinformation. She claimed that her anti-lockdown lies and bullshit caused an outpouring of support from ordinary people. I feel this may need repeating. You don't know what ordinary people are, Isabelle. You went to the same school as the fucking king. So she spent the whole thing attacking every decision the government made about lockdown. Now, I always approve of people attacking the Tories, but her reasons then were decidedly shaky, and her reasons for attacking both Labour and the Tories nowadays are because she thinks they aren't far right enough, and that the UK would be a much better place if we got rid of the pesky proles and installed Nigel Farage and her sweetheart Richard Tice as leaders instead. Can you imagine that? Her views on masks are even more ridiculous though. Despite a very expensive education, she's one of those cauliflower-brained nutjobs who absolutely refuses to understand the simple and basic concept of a mask stopping your breath, which contains a little sample of every virus that you might have, being projected 2 metres in front of you everywhere you go. She used her platform to demean people that abided by the mask wearing policy. She called masks muzzles, and has since insisted that she apparently still understands more about virology than every doctor, virologist and immunologist on the planet by saying they were useless, a tool of oppression. And when she sees people that still wear a mask occasionally, she just thinks to herself, well, you can open the doors of the prison, but some people just refuse to walk through it. She said that quite recently. A tool of oppression, eh? Well, Isabelle End would certainly know all about tools of oppression, wouldn't she? Apparently she wakes up next to one every morning. Thank you for watching if you've gotten this far. There's so much more we could say about Isabelle End Oakeshott, from the disgusting articles she spent years writing in the Daily Mail and other such destructive, divisive rags, to her time on GBBs, or her time on Talk TV. She really is the opposite of a force for good, and she represents the very worst of the rich right wing. I think it would be fair to say far right even, considering who she's decided to shack up with. As with all these well-connected private school piss takers, she isn't going anywhere. If nothing she's said so far was capable of bringing her career to an end, and there certainly isn't anything in future that will. The rich always fall upwards while the rest of us fall down, don't they? If there's something that she's said or done that you're surprised I haven't mentioned, then feel free to remind me in the comments. I do read them all, and I will respond if you make a good point. I'm fed up with her now though. Doing a bit of research on her hasn't been exactly enjoyable. I mean, it wasn't quite as bad as Kemi Badenoch or Ian Duncan Smith, but hasn't been much fun reading about Isabelle Oakeshott and the vile things she comes out with for a few days. Anyway, if you've enjoyed the video, hit the like button and check if you're subscribed before you go. You can help the channel a bit further if you're in a position to do so by using the links to Patreon, PayPal, or just buying me a coffee, and those links will be in the descriptions box. Or you could hit the join button for memberships. It's always very much appreciated indeed. Now, I don't think you'll be surprised to learn that isn't all I have to say, but it's as much of what I've got to say as I'm going to say today. Ta-ra. Isabelle End was married to Nigel Rosser and had three, two, one, turn into bloody Ted Rogers. Jesus.